Hi, welcome to the Influence Women podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen Cooke, and the Global Director. It's great to have you with us today as we welcome Kelli Smith, the Vice President of Marketing for the MomCo. Kelli is an advocate and a mom, and her focus is to help moms navigate the very cluttered and crazy world of moms today. We're going to be chatting with her about how we as creative content creators and artists can create things that resonate with kids and parents today. Stay tuned. Welcome, Kelli.
Hello. Thank you. It's such a delight to be on here. Very excited to chat today.
Yes, well, we're excited to have you. And I'm going to share just a little bit about your background and your bio a little bit, and then we'll get right into it. So, Kelli is an energetic vice president. She has been working with the MomCo company now for about 17 years, growing nonprofits and empowering moms. She works alongside her husband Ellery, and they've earned the nickname the Chip and Joanna Gaines of the Rockies because they love to remodel things. Kelli, I need to have you at my house pretty soon. We need some remodeling done here. But she's been navigating and growing two now teenage children, Madeline 17 and Liam 15, and their beloved Bernedoodle, Ashton O'Malley. So welcome to the program, Kelli. I know just briefly we talked about what you do with MomCo as the marketing director, but tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into being an advocate for moms and working with a MomCo? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, great question. I 17 years ago had my daughter, and that was such a life shock. I had gone from working full time in retail management for a good number of years, and to go from this high paced, high energy, lots of interaction with people every day to staying at home was just quite the shock. And we knew that I was going to stay home with kiddos, and my mother-in-law was like, you should look for a MOPS group. That would be a good place for you to connect. And so it was February, and I went to the website and did a zip code search and called the top 3 groups that popped up. And the one that had the meeting the soonest is the one that I ended up going to. And I expected to be walking into a room of moms, and the conversation was all going to be about comparing designer diaper bags or something. And at the moment, I was like, it's worth it. Like, I just need human connection. It's going to be fine. And what I walked into was the opposite of that. It was a level of authenticity and depth of sharing that I had not experienced anywhere else in my life. And what I spent the next 8 years of my life in was participating in that group, eventually leading that group. And it was just such a life change for me. That group navigated for me and walked alongside a lot of medical issues with a special needs kiddo that I have, and then eventually a celiac diagnosis for my daughter, which diagnoses like that are just life-changing because you have to change how you cook and you have to change how you shop. And at the time, it was not nearly as big of a thing as it is now, but like they came and dropped groceries off on my doorstep. That was all the like right foods I would have to buy, and just really just rallied alongside. And I think taught me how to be a better mom, a better wife, a better friend. And so I just believe so much based on my own experience and how much I've heard it change the life of others, that when you invest in moms, you really impact the entire family and potentially generations. Because my kids talk about their experience in the kids program as well. And it's just memories that last in such a tender season of your life. When you're transitioning a lot. So I never intended to be working for a ministry, never thought that that was my life path. And when my son was going to kindergarten, somebody said, hey, you should just look at the website. They have a corporate office here in Denver. And I looked at it, and I've never heard God speak so clearly to me that not only was I going to get this job, but like this was where I needed to be. And that sounds so weird, even just saying it out loud, but it was just such a piece that I knew this is where I needed to be. And so I did get hired. And since then, I have just, it's been such a labor of love. And I have been on both our sales team and our marketing team, and just this hunger to grow the ministry and make sure ultimately that we are still around for when my daughter has kids.
Wow, love it, love it, love it. I love
Yeah,
how God takes us on a journey when we don't even know we're on that journey, doesn't he?
exactly.
And he puts all the pieces together. Even having a child who had some special needs and some challenges there that you, I'm sure, weren't prepared for as a mom, and the resources that you needed that God provided for you just in the right timing. And so, and those are all just key in how great and good our Father is in watching out for us and guiding us along our way. But then we also have to open our hands and mind and hearts too. We have to be willing to say, okay, I'm going to step into this. And I loved how at first you were a little hesitant about joining a mom's group, but then found that was ideal and how much it resonated in your life and led you to where you are today. So look what God does,
Yeah.
isn't it? Well, our Influence Women podcast focuses on women working in media, entertainment, arts, music, and leadership. And I often say, if you are a woman and you own a cell phone and a social media account, you are in media. So our moms are in media today. But they're probably not seeing a lot of the great content they wish they could see and provide for their kids. Would you, as an advocate for mom and as a listener of what moms love and want to be seen, have on their screens, what are some things that you might share with content creators and artists that could help resonate and bring better content onto our screens?
I think the challenge with social media is that it only presents these positive images where you lose a level of authenticity, and it starts to become almost like the movie highlight version of things. I would liken it to, I feel like in marriage, you never see the daily living of marriage portrayed in movies. All it is like the highlights of marriage or the lowlights of marriage that you see portrayed, but the everyday is where you have to have the grit and the tenacity and the commitment to one another to really make that marriage thrive. And I think parenthood's very much the same. You see so much of like the perfect photos or the photos at the zoo, but you don't see that the car ride home was very full of very exhausted kiddos in the back that are screaming.
Yes.
So I think that the authenticity and the ability to show resilience over time, which is really difficult to capture, but it's something you don't see a lot of. And I think that gives this enduring hope that even if it's hard, it's doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think a lot of what society and culture is kind of pressing into us is if it feels wrong, it is wrong. And that simply isn't true. And it's how we grow, and it's how we serve one another. And it's really what God ultimately calls us to, is not to comfort, but really to this level of discomfort. And so any ways that we can continue to reinforce that to kind of counter the cultural understanding. I recently was talking to somebody in a conference that was around AI and media. And what they said was that by 2036, every piece of content that's ever been created in the internet will have been ingested by AI. And so we have this very short window between now and 2036 to get as much Christian content out as we can, because that's the window that we have left. And I think that for me is just something that I had never considered or thought of, but there is significantly more content that is not through a theological lens and a biblical lens. And so how do we, as content creators, make sure we are putting as much out as we can?
Wow, you are speaking my language right now and my passion, because that's kind of what I've been sharing most recently about, is how AI is coming on big time. And if we're not creating great content and feeding the beast, so to speak, and I don't know whether AI is going to really become what we as Christians know as the beast from Revelation, but all that I read about it and study about it, it's really going to take over in ways we can't even dream of these days. And specifically because it works off data, it works off what it's being fed. And so you feed the beast what it gets, and it's going to spew out what it gets. So we need women specifically, and men, in our artistic technologies and media entertainment, feeding content into what we're doing online and digitally more than ever before. And yeah, so you're really speaking my language. I want to go a little bit further too in what you're saying. I loved what you said too about showing the everyday life of a mom and a family. I sat here while you were speaking and thought about some of the movies that I've loved in the past that I've had fun with watching my kids and now my grandkids. The Home Alone series, for instance, and Mrs. Doubtfire. Those are two films that that come to mind right away of the challenges that moms face, trying to juggle it all, trying to raise kids who are good citizens and are thinking straight and can think on their own, so to speak, even on their feet. And so those kind of films, that kind of content is so important as we create programming and productions that will resonate in the future. But yeah, the everyday things of life is so important. One of the things too I'd love to talk about is the isolation that often happens with moms. They are at home raising their kids often, and their minds and their little fingers are usually on their cell phone constantly. And we're communicating to our kids the kind of things that we're watching. How does a mom who's isolated at home have maybe some greater challenges even than, say, a working woman out in the world, in the working world, business world, who might have interactions during the day with other people, but a mom is isolated at home? Are there some things that you've learned about how to help women with ingesting media and how they're communicating their media use to their children?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the greatest gifts we can give our kids, and we've all heard this, but I have to say it to myself and remind myself all the time, being present is the best gift you can give. And so for your kids in those moments that you're at the park or in everyday moments at the grocery store, or for me recently, even in the car, it would be so easy for me to jump on a last minute work call or something like that. And I've decided, especially with teens, the car is the most special time I get with the kids. And so if I have them in the car, I don't take work calls. So I think setting some rhythms in your life that are keeping you present and anchored in the moment is really important. Also, the having dinner around the table every night is another way where if you don't have phones with you at that point, that's a good discipline to get yourself in. I think for kids, it's hard. I definitely do not have the answers, but I think the fact that it is so hard for us as adults to manage our relationship with technology, to ask a kid to be able to do that on their own is impossible. And I remember when my kids were in toddlerhood and younger, I'd say maybe even elementary school, it was up to me as the parent to enforce the boundaries and to set the limits, no technology in your room, or like just setting some boundaries that are non-negotiables feels so important. And that kind of answers one side. On the other side, I would say, we did a study recently with Barna, and it showed that only 1 in 5 moms believe that they're meaningfully contributing to the world. And this is one of the hardest stats for me, because the work that moms are doing to raise the next generation is by far the most meaningful work that they could do. And I think both society and our own self-talk tells us that what we're doing isn't important. And I think the more we can champion how important it is and that there's so much value in it, we need to change that national narrative that says that a mom that's alone and isolated, and the stats are astounding at how hard parenthood is, and particularly for moms, the burden they carry. And I think it becomes easier and easier, especially after COVID, to just isolate away. And the isolation doesn't break those negative self-talk that you're talking to your that are lies that are being circled in your head,
Mm-hmm.
and you keep reinforcing them by not sharing life with other people. And so the ability to step out into community, whether it's finding a MomCo group or for the moms that work, your ability to even interact and somebody can say, hey, it looks like you're not yourself today. What's going on? Just the nature of being shoulder to shoulder with people helps us to carry one another's burdens. And so often we'd rather like shelter down when things get hard and not let people in. And that's ultimately hurts us more than anything else could. It makes the journey to navigate the hard things that life throws at you even more impossible without other people.
Yes. Well, I think you really touched on a real nerve there that I've observed as a grandma now. That is the worth and dignity of moms, and so as creative content creators and artists, we need to be creating more that shows moms in a positive way, don't we? We
Yeah.
need to really be championing them more on the screen in what they're doing and raising them up. It kind of bothers me sometimes a lot with a lot of the Disney princess movies and things like that. When you start looking at them, there's always the princess that defies their mother or their father's wishes, right? There's there's always that character who goes against what they've been told to do, and sometimes it makes the parent or the mom or the father look like an idiot, or
Yes.
that they're not meaningful and not worth have worth themselves. So creating some storylines that show the importance of mom. I think that's one of the things I loved, again, going back to the Home Alone series, is at the end, Kevin looks at his mom and realizes how important his family is, and his mom and dad are, and what they say does resonate with him. And so I think that's one of the things, and I think it's one of the things that makes that movie continue to be a hit every year at Christmas time, is because of those themes that run through it. Yeah, I truly believe that, as women, even in the industry, we resonate at times with moms who are hidden,
Yes.
often. We're not seen. And for the importance that we have, often we're given jobs that don't seem meaningful. Scrubbing the kitchen floor and cleaning up the messes after kids and washing clothes doesn't seem to have any meaning. But in the end, somebody's got to do that, and it makes whoever it is that we're doing it for shine and grow. And so I loved what you talked about putting the cell phone away or not taking meetings while you're in the car. I remember as a young mom driving my kids to all the lessons that we drive our kids to, and in school sport practices and things like that. And those were the moments in the car that I think we had our greatest conversations, because but you have to turn off the media, and it's so hard these days. There's Spotify going on, and there's something going on, the phone is ringing, or there's some type of kids app that they want to watch, or a movie or something. But we need to provide time for downtime for our kids, and for them to be able to think. In fact, being bored is one of the most important things that researchers say that we are not providing for our kids today, because it's in the boredom that we become creative. And so I would ask maybe, Kelli, You working with parents and kids these days, what are some of the things that parents could do to help enhance creativity after they've put their phone down? How can they enhance some of that creativity in the kids?
Going back to basics, it's getting outside. It's giving them time to play with friends that doesn't include electronics. It is the boredom piece is something I truly believe in. And I often reflect on, okay, in my childhood, how did I spend my time? How did I spend my hours? And how did my mom spend her hours? And how did her, like, just looking back generationally at how different it is, I think modern technology and modern lifestyle is lived at a pace that has never been seen in any generation prior to ours. We live at a really fast pace. And I think any opportunity to slow things down um, helps to connect us more with ourselves and our loved ones in our community, even, and to not feel like you have to rush through everything. Um, because creativity needs space. And if you don't have that
Mm.
space, that helps to just stifle every level of creativity. Um, and in my household, particularly, there are three creatives and then me. I'm not very creative. And so we
Well, I don't believe
we
that.
kind of the main holiday things like dyeing Easter eggs is a great opportunity to be able to involve kids in things that are creative. And I think giving lots of varied opportunities. So carving pumpkins is another amazing activity that happens every year that's special and makes memories, but also allows for creative expression. And I think it's important for me as a good reminder, like slow down, take pictures of those moments, like savor those moments and don't feel like it becomes a checklist of another thing. Like we have to decorate Easter eggs, check, like how can you make sure you're just really present intentionally in those moments? I think helps to foster and place a value on creativity.
Yes. And kids are just instinctively creative. They really are. I mean, even writing, just
Yeah.
encouraging them to keep a journal or to write a
Yeah.
story and then draw a picture, about the story. And then you can take your video camera and videotape them, reading their story and showing their picture. I mean, they love that. Kids want to grab your cell phone anyway and they want to make videos. So I was laughing at my grandchildren the other day because I wouldn't let them on my cell phone and sent them outside. And so they created this story on their own about the scary homes on Goose Creek Drive, which is the name of the street we live on, and they did this whole little thing. And I said, okay, let's get on and we'll make some pictures and then we'll film it. And so that's what we did, and it was just really fun and creative for them. And so we were able to take what they'd already started and thought about and written about, and then incorporated the technology into it as well. And so there are just all sorts of ways. I think a lot of times it's just a matter of us being intentional about it, isn't it?
And I feel like it's so important. Moms, we are really good at feeling guilty and shaming ourselves. And so I think also don't feel bad for the moments that you've missed and don't like you can start today in giving presence and in instilling creativity, but it does no value to beat yourself up over the moments that you've missed. And it just feels like it's worth saying that just because I feel like it's so easy for us to be really hard on ourselves.
Yes, yes. And I often get the question too, how do I get my child in the industry? How do I get him in the business?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes sometimes it's better to pull him back and say, okay, let's start with the basic things and being creative. Let's write some stories. Let's, film some things and see what it's like and whether or not you really will enjoy that or not. Because if it's not fun, I always would say
Yeah.
to people, it has to be fun. And if going to auditions time after time, or not being able to go to parties and other things that other kids are doing because you're filming something, that's not going to be fun for them either. So they need to look at the whole industry and what it amounts to too. So I'm always saying we have to make things fun. We have to make things fun for kids today. One of the things I've heard said is that we are not to raise our kids, but we are to raise disciples for Christ. And I thought that was an interesting statement when I heard it, because often as we grow our kids at home, as we as content providers and artists want to create great programming for our kids, looking at whether or not we're helping them become disciples of Christ, how they can engage in their own faith. And then also a part of that is being parents who are not overprotective, but preparing them for our future and our culture day. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's there's only a very small window of time that is dedicated to the Sunday school experience. And so it's so important that we share our faith with our kiddos. Moms often are the greatest influence on faith for their kids, that when asked reflectively, who made the biggest impact on your faith? It's moms. And so that is a job that I don't think we always wear as a hat that we think we're putting on, but it is in just showing how you live, and whether that's how you serve one another in your family, whether that's the habits that you instill around holidays and how much you pull Jesus into those holidays and how much you put words to that. I think it's in words, it's in deed, it's in the welcoming environment that you have in your home. It's in pouring into the other kids, the friends of your kiddos as well, and just helping to foster when they have conflict in those, just being able to take teaching moments and really unpack them in the end. This comes to being present and just using those little moments in life that you have. So I would say largely not a program, it's a lifestyle.
Yes, it is a lifestyle. And again, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about intentionality. We have to be intentional about how we are presenting our faith and walking the walk and not just talking the talk too, right?
Yes, very much so.
And kids are watching those small things. It's those small little things that they're constantly watching us for, and seeing how we react when we get angry or we get frustrated. When we get bored, what do we do? When we get angry, how do we handle our anger? These are all things that we're constantly showing our kids how to react to these things. And especially as teenagers, when the forces of media and entertainment become so heavy, so much bigger in their lives. And so even as we as parents help our kids consume media, it's the ability to turn the media off and then having a discussion. Now, what have you just seen? What were some good things that happened? And what are some things that maybe, frustrated you or made you angry or scared you even? I think often we are giving kids a lot of media before they're ready for it. And there are a lot of things that they're fearful of, but they don't even know how to ask the question about how to overcome that fear. So tell us a little bit more about the MomCo company, what it does, how our viewers and listeners could get more information about it and download maybe some of the resources.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've been around for about 50 years. We were called MOPS International, Mothers of Preschoolers, until a year ago when we rebranded as the MomCo. And that just really represents that we are for all moms. We want to welcome, whether you're pregnant for the first time or whether you're raising grown kids still, every mom has a place at the table. And we meet most often in churches. Usually we're a ministry outreach of a church, but we're a place for believers and non-believers to come together and be introduced to Jesus and walked alongside in a community that just rallies around one another. We are in 109 countries. And so this is a global ministry that impacts individual families at the community level. And so we would love to have you check us out. TheMom.co is our website. We have an annual event every year called MomCon. That's at MomCon.co. And that's a gathering of about 5,000 moms, which you have never seen energy like 5,000 moms together without their kiddos. It's incredible. And so we are hosting that in Florida this September. It moves cities every year, but we have, and then to follow us on social as well, are places to get both resourcing, but I would encourage you to look for a group in your area and check us out. Go visit one.
And if we're a media producer, specifically on films and television programs and things, and we need some resources for films or an understanding of maybe how to write a storyline for maybe something you're working on. Is there a resource online that would be helpful with that, or they just contact you directly online?
Yeah, reach out to me directly. I'd love to chat. I think we are all better together. And so any opportunity we have to brainstorm together would be brilliant. So I would love to connect with you. My email address is ksmith, SMITH, at themom.co. My name feels very generic at Kelli Smith, so it's hard to find me on any socials. So it's easier almost to email me. So that's ksmith at themom.co.
Great. Perfect. Wonderful. It was great having you on and so insightful. And I know that a lot of what you say is going to resonate with our creatives and our artists who are wanting to do and create wonderful content for kids and moms today. And so great having you with us. Thanks so much, Kelli, for being with us today on the Influence Women podcast.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's been such an honor. Thank you. Such a pleasure, and love the work you are doing to support those of us in media.
Thanks for joining us today for the Influence Women podcast. I'm your host and global director, Kathleen Cooke. It's been great having you with us, and it's been great having Kelli Smith with us from the MomCo. She gave us some great tips on how we can connect and collaborate so we can create what we change on our screens. Don't miss each and every podcast with Influence Women. Like us below and click the bell so you're notified each time. And also, if you get a moment, take a moment to leave us a comment. It helps us grow our community. Join us if you're not a member of Influence Women at influencewomen.org. We want to grow women who are working in the media, entertainment, arts, music industry, and in leadership. So join us each time and see what all new events are happening on the Influence Women website, again at influencewomen.org. We'll see you next time for the Influence Women podcast.